In the early 1800s, Mary Anning was a pioneering, prolific, and underappreciated fossil hunter that made some of the most important discoveries in paleontology. She was born in 1799 in the southern seaside England resort town of Lyme Regis. Her parents had 10 kids, but only her and her older brother made it past the age of 5. She was even named after her sister, who died only 6 months before when her clothes caught fire. When our Mary Anning was 1 year old, she was being held by a family friend under an elm tree watching a horse show when lightning struck the tree. 3 of the women under the tree died, and for a minute they thought Mary had died too. Weirdly, her family credited the lightning strike with her intelligence, saying that before that she was a dull and fussy baby. Her dad was a carpenter, but in order to make some extra dough, he would take the kids down to the coastal cliffs of what's now called the Jurassic Coast in order to find some fossils. And they would sell them as curios to tourists out front their house. He even made Mary her own little pickaxe. But those cliffs are dangerous, especially in the winter, because storms cause landslides all the time. And when she was 8, her father fell off one of the cliffs, got really messed up, and died of tuberculosis 3 years later. And that left the already poor family with more debt and less means to pay him off. So she started going out to find her own fossils to sell, sometimes on her own and sometimes with her brother. And when she was 12, her brother found a 4-foot-long ichthyosaur skull. A couple months later, Mary unearthed the rest of it and sold it to a local lord for 23 pounds, which is about a couple $1,000s in today money. It wasn't the first ichthyosaur ever found, but it became the type specimen for which ichthyosaurs are described and named. But, as became a theme in her life, she wasn't given credit in the paper about it. The fossil also added heat to the debate about the nature of life on Earth. Most people, including scientists, thought that the Earth was only about 6,000 years old and extinction wasn't even a thing. In 1823, she found what would be her most famous find, a complete plesiosaur skeleton, and that thing looked weird. So weird that Georges Cuvier, sometimes called the founding father of paleontology, saw this drawing that Mary Anning did and doubted that it was a real specimen. But the finding was authenticated after a special meeting from London's prestigious Geological Society, which Mary could never join because she was a woman. After that, people started taking her shit more seriously, and scientists and rich folk would head on down to Lyme Regis to go fossil hunting with Mary Anning. In 1828, she found the first petrosaur outside of Germany, and to his credit, when William Buckland described it, he gave her credit by name. Buckland also credited her for figuring out that coprolites, which people had been calling bezoar stones, had been fossilized feces. Despite the importance of her findings and the role she played in the burgeoning field of paleontology, she lived most of her life in abject poverty, and she was well aware that she was being used. Her friend Anna Pinney wrote, "She says the world has used her ill. These men of learning have sucked her brains and made a great deal of publishing works of which she furnished the contents, while she derived none of the advantages."